Hello, everybody, and welcome to CLCI Live.
Spooky Live.
Spooky Live.
Another spooky.
Scary
We have 5
101.
spooky lives this month.
That scares me.
Should all be very
I scared of none of y'all.
afraid.
You ain't scared of none of us all.
Before and we go into the spooky live, be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment and interact with us in the chat in Facebook and YouTube lands. We love interacting with you guys and answering your spooky questions.
Spooky.
Last time we had a live, we discussed Scary 101 vampires in coaching. Those emotional vampires. Now we are talking about Scary 101. Do we all know how to pronounce this word?
Scopophobia?
Scopophobia.
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 Nailed it, Jen. Nailed it.
Scopophobia. It is the fear of being seen, being looked at, being stared at. And we're going to find out how that relates to coaches and their fears of being seen.
It's real.
It is real.
But
And
you
it's
know,
a
I did notice
Oh, yeah.
there's a distinction. There's a distinction between like a legitimate fear of being looked at, like stared at, being physically seen versus being seen like I expose all my deepest thoughts and feelings to you and you see me wholly and then you think less of me because you don't like one of my thoughts or feelings, something like that. Right? I mean, that's what I got from the research.
Yeah, and I think we have to be careful too, because I don't want anybody to perceive us as making fun of people who are diagnosed with scopophobia.
Right.
That's not what we're doing here at all.
Yeah. No.
We have a sense of humor, so sometimes it may come across inappropriately, and the intention versus impact is there. So apologies for anyone that might have taken that beginning as a message that there's anything wrong with scopophobia. We're not saying that.
And to that point as well, as I was doing a little bit of research, I saw that while scopophobia wasn't necessarily in a DSM-5 TR manual, it is said to be linked with general anxiety disorder. And as I was looking at this, I'm like, this is going to be I'm sure it's going to turn into an interesting discussion around boundary lines in coaching if you've got a client that's legitimately got scopophobia.
Or how about your coach?
Indeed.
I know I have a touch of it. I don't have it prescribed. It's self-diagnosed. I don't, when I first started teaching, I'd never been up in front of anybody and, talk about the fears and anxiety that I would go through. And I would become a different person and everybody go, where'd you go? And it just took time for me to be able to stand up in front of people. And now I have a routine that I do so that I can do it and I can just get into it and breathe into the process.
And I guess when we look at it from like a more colloquial or layman expression, scopophobia, like the fear of public speaking would definitely fall under this. Why do you think people have this fear or this anxiety? We're not talking about really anymore like a diagnosed condition, but why do you think people in general have this fear of being seen or perceived?
Social media. And the funny part to that is it's not necessarily social media itself, it's the image that is constantly shoved in our faces from mediums like social media, even the TV we watch. There's this polished, put together avatar that we feel we need to strive for day in and day out. And when we find out we can't be that perfect individual, we get more self-conscious than we should be getting. And that's why I jokingly say social media is a start, but for some people that is very real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the thing we have to be careful of is there are so people everybody who has legitimate fears of being seen, whether you're talking about the diagnosis or you're talking about anything other than the diagnosis, there can be a lot of things like I was reading on mentalhealth.com, like bullying, teasing, being involved with ridiculing you. You end up creating, there's post-traumatic experiences, there's emotional responses. But even in like this whole idea, like what you were saying, Sam, is people feeling like they need to be perfect, that they can't have any flaws, that they can't do it, like Mary Poppins, practically perfect. We have this excessive ideal of we're supposed to be a certain way. And if we're not that way, either we're going to be ridiculed, shamed, or as you even see in the political climate, going back to the age of 5, or why'd you do this, or you did that. I think it can be frightening. It can be frightening. I know that I've been extremely present. There is an echo. I'm not sure why, but anyway, I wasn't supposed to read that. Anyways, sorry, private message. My son is always telling me, Mom, I sent that message to you, not to read it in front of the whole class. Anyways, what I was saying is like this whole building of my own business for the last 4 years. I was a teacher for 30 years. I rarely did anything on Facebook, Instagram, or anything. And students would say, can I Facebook friend you? I'm like, no, not till you've graduated high school and you're no longer in my classroom. And now as a professional, 4 years, I am visible almost every other day on social media in one form or another, and even out in person. And hey, Tristan.
Hi, Tristan.
So just really noticing that I'm kind of not feeling that fear that I used to feel because I've been practicing it. But there's always a moment where I'm wondering, I wonder if someone's going to come back at me and say something about that. So yeah, anyways, put that out there.
Well, maybe even to, step aside from social media, and even predating social media, when you started teaching, Misha, or when you were coming in your career as a teacher, would you notice maybe new teachers or even yourself having that anxiety or fear of like being in front of a classroom?
I noticed it in other teachers. I will tell you, from the age of 5, I was a singer. So I was in choir, I was in performance theater, I was in musical theater. Like I loved getting in front of people. Even my sister and I have had jokes about it because it wasn't a joke back then, but it is now, where I'm the younger sister. And when she was having her little performance on video, she would push me out of the way and I would try to come right back. So it was trying to share the stage. So for me personally, I don't have a lot of anxiety getting up in front of people, whether it's in the classroom or on a stage or out in public. But I have noticed teachers stand in front shaking. And I think it's just that nervousness of, oh my gosh, all these people are watching me. And then I think it then elevates to, oh my gosh, what might they be thinking about me? Right.
So
especially middle schoolers and high schoolers, they can be pretty mean.
I've had personal experience working with middle schoolers and elementary school kids in a more fun theater setting, but new people at that job were, deathly afraid of like speaking in front of groups of like 30 to 100 people at a time. But I think we're kind of getting to, in my opinion, what the core is of this fear is maybe not, it probably perfection in some ways, that wanting to be perfect or comparing yourself to those who you perceive as like, maybe more put together. But I think it's also that fear of judgment and even a fear of responsibility. Like I've got people looking at me now. I need to present myself as a way that I don't usually present myself as, maybe as, a responsible adult in charge of a classroom, or someone on social media who knows what they're talking about, or an authority figure on a subject matter. Like us right now, we're authority experts on life coaching. So what other reasons might someone be afraid of being seen? We talked about maybe the impacts or the results, like I'm afraid of being judged, I'm afraid of being, not perfect. Are there people out there who are just, oh yeah, go on.
Well, I think there's a huge, people talk a lot about the fear of failure, but I think there's a huge fear of success.
That is a good one.
I think there's also a little bit of obscurity around what success and failure even mean. So you've got failure, which is seen as the boogeyman, whether or not you can actually handle it. And then there's success, somebody else's idea of success that's placed on you, and you think, can I actually do it? So
That's the
without
boogeyman,
actually,
by the way.
so what is it?
That's the boogie woman.
The boogie. So regardless, we're in spooky season, y'all. So that obscurity around both of them can definitely drive someone to be afraid of being seen.
The cool thing about being a coach, though, are we really supposed to be seen, or are we trying to help the client be seen?
Depends on what medium you're speaking of. On social media, you'll probably want to be seen if that's your way of marketing the clients. But when it comes to the coaching session itself, you're out of the way. I always tell students in class, you're putting the spotlight on them. You're just the pit crew, if you want to use those kind of terms. For those who have actually studied in that, please forgive the loose analogy here. All I'm saying is you're not there singing Tomorrow in your rendition of Annie. I don't know. I'm done.
I could see what, Lisa, you might be getting at, especially if it was like a group session or even like a couple session where you're I guess more responsible than you normally would on a one-on-one for the cohesion of like in the flow of a session, especially if you're working with multiple people. That fear might show up, but at a certain point, I've seen this. Jen, you probably agree with this. We get phone calls sometimes of people who want to be coaches, want to open their own businesses, but they don't want to be on social media, and they get that ick from having to put themselves out there for other people to see them. They don't really say it in so many words, but it's that fear of being seen.
A lot of times they'll ask it as like, do I have to be on social media in order to be successful as a coach? And my answer to that is no. There's lots of different ways to market yourself. There are people that can literally pass out business cards and go to their community events and build a whole clientele that way. And that has nothing to do with social media. So no, there's many different ways is usually
It still
my
has
answer.
to do with being visible.
Yeah,
But
it's still being seen.
It's
Yeah,
a different. Yeah,
Ah,
it's
that's
very
true. They have
different.
to be seen IRL.
Yeah, and I think when people ask that question, they're also sidestepping the actual issue, which is they are afraid of being seen in some way. They want the success, but they want to do it under the radar somehow.
Mhm.
Which I wouldn't recommend it from like the consulting and marketing background, avoiding that. But I've had discussions where people are like, okay, you're not comfortable with social media. What are you comfortable with, and how are you going to get that into the ears of people that you know? And I'm losing. Can you guys hear me?
yes, we're hearing you good. It didn't blip at all.
Okay. Gotcha.
There's an experience I had around, not really wanting to be seen and wanting to be valued, I guess you would say. There was a time, and some of you have already heard this story. There's a time I was traveling to teach, as we did back before COVID, and I was sitting at the airport eating some breakfast or something like that. And I was sitting next to some gentleman who came in, and we're just chit-chatting. Hello, how are you? Where are you going? What are you doing? Just brief chit-chat kind of thing. I pulled two of my business cards out, and then all of a sudden I noticed this, really ginormous ring on this one gentleman's finger. And I wasn't really sure what it was. The Stanley Cup ring. I didn't really know what that was. I had to look it up. I had to put too much thought into this. So those two cards that I had in my hand, I became very anxious about it. I didn't want to be one of those who now it looked like because he was somebody that now I'm giving him the card. And so I overthought the whole thing. And so as I'm walking out of the restaurant, they were still there. But as I'm walking out of the restaurant, I threw these two cards in the trash can because that's just what I did. I was afraid to be seen, but also wanting to be seen. And I didn't know how to navigate that space where it didn't feel creepy, thinking of somebody who is well known, not to me, but to others. And how do I traverse that and cross over and find the value of what I do, and no matter where I was. So it's uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable.
And that story makes me think about another possibility for the fear, which is not being able to control someone else's perspective or opinion of you. So,
Mhm.
like in that case,
Yeah.
it's not that really that you didn't want to be seen, it's that you didn't want to be seen as something.
Yeah.
And because you couldn't control it, you decided not to engage with it at all. I mean, that I experience quite frequently.
That was
Happy
something I
birthday,
shared.
Jerome!
Yeah, Jerome!
Birthday!
Happy
Jerome!
birthday, Jerome.
Are we all going to sing happy birthday with him?
We should
Yes.
probably not. It doesn't
At the end.
Does not sound good. I'm telling you.
We'll do it.
Yeah, before it
Sounds
gets
terrible.
derailed, I want to just piggyback on something you said, Jen. This was actually something that I shared in the alumni chat. As I'm talking with people about my business, and especially as of late, I'm like, I'm not scared of the conversation. I'm scared of the thing that I have no control over whatsoever, whether they see me as someone credible or not. And interestingly enough, for any coach watching this, most times, if they have something negative to say about you, they're probably going to say it behind your back anyway. But they're not going to say it to your face. If anything, if you're presenting yourself as everything you are and none of what you're not, then you don't have to worry about them seeing you as, oh, look at one of those coach types of people. You're going to be received a lot better than you realize, coming from somebody who's much more introverted than I lead people on to believe.
Well, and also it's more about them than it is about you. If they're judging you or they're ridiculing you, hurt people. So we got to kind of take it and kind of go, oh, that's not my stuff, and give it back. Not give it back like in the same way, but oh, that was weird. Look how I look really trippy.
Now give it back. Give it back.
That is freaky.
On the other hand, there might be something wrong with you, and that might lead to some introspection on what you
Oh
should
my
change.
gosh.
No,
I'm
he's
just saying, not
he's right.
everybody's a perfect, great individual. Sometimes, we let our ugly side through in some social situations, and we need a hard learning experience on what, is okay or might be too pushy or might be a little much for people at times.
Yeah, he's
Yes,
right.
That's
Yeah.
very true. So, Anthony,
Fair.
on that note, I have a few things that I've been wanting to talk to you about.
Okay, we're gonna turn off your camera. There we go.
No, he's right. Sometimes
Gosh.
the problem really is you. And you have to have the self-security to realize that even though you're great, you still got work to do. You're a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time, at any given moment. And just
That's
because
called
you
a
got
masterpiece in progress.
whatever you want to call it, it's true. You got
It is.
negative feedback, you got positive feedback. So it's just looking at it as objectively evaluating the thing versus your entire identity.
Yes, indeed.
And if you want to think about it in the most the cold analytic terms as possible, you can just think of it as like A/B testing. You just got to figure out what people respond to and what works and what doesn't work, compare the two, and then move on to a different direction, especially if it's your business persona that you're cultivating. Not everybody from the get-go when you're starting a new business or being an entrepreneur is going to know what their niche is or how they're going to present themselves to get the results that they want. So it requires, trial and error, a lot of trial and error for some people. And the only way you know what's going to work is by putting yourself out there. That's is to say, it doesn't make it any less scarier, and that's not really advice for people who are terrified of it, but it's one of those things that does need to happen for growth.
I think in any business, you have to think about the olden days. The olden days, we had a book that we looked in, that yellow page book where we looked for advertising, where we looked for businesses, where we looked, and now it's all on social media. We're all out in front of people. So
Yeah.
while Jen, you said you don't really have to, I think you have to get in front of people. You have to find the discomfort in doing it and find your pace in just getting out there and talking with people in front of people. As an introvert myself, that was something I had to hurdle and get over and get into a space where, with my friends, I didn't have a problem, but getting out and speaking with strangers, That's a problem. Now my children can't shut me up.
There you go.
They get embarrassed when I go to the grocery store because I talk to everyone.
So one of the things that really started to help me feel comfortable kind of being out in groups and just talking, well, two things actually. One was I started doing improv. And
I took an improv class too.
Yeah, where everything you do, whether it was meant to be or not, is a celebration. You celebrate. You're like, woohoo, I made a mistake, or woohoo, this is, and it's like, it's not like the weddings where the bride is supposed to look beautiful and all the bridesmaids are supposed to make her look more beautiful because they're wearing ugly dresses. It's actually in improv, everybody's supposed to look beautiful. So you say yes and you follow and you do and you participate with each other, all being magnificent. And so I take that concept, and when I meet other coaches, it's about generosity over competition. I'm not trying to be a better coach than they are. I'm trying to shine and allow space for them to shine as well. And then the second thing I forgot.
I want to jump on that improv example you brought, because I've done improv too. And when we did improv, and we're going to relate this back to coaching, we weren't just thrown in front of an audience of strangers and told, improvise, go do the yes and. We got to play little games in safe places with people we knew, and we built up the skill over time. And part of getting comfortable with being fully yourself in an improvised setting is, taking those small steps and finding places where you are comfortable with and making little incremental pushes outside of the comfort zone. Which I've coached a few people like that, where we've got the big goal down the line, but we're working on very small things on how to very slowly push the boundary, get a little bit more comfortable outside of, what they would like to do, which is stay in their shell. So that's one of the ways that people can get comfortable with overcoming that social anxiety, is just finding small ways to just put themselves out there just a little bit.
I think that's really important. Incrementality, like you think about, that's a positive way to practice visibility and creating that natural progression of, oh, I'm getting more comfortable with this. I can do this, and then going into a different audience. But you think about the impact of practice, right? I mean, so you've got kids all over this country, United States, practicing fire drills and unfortunately intruder drills, right? Earthquake drills, depending on where you live, tornado drills. And the reality is they practice it when there's not a charge, right? They practice and practice and practice. And then when there's a real event, they go into serious, I got to do this mode. But they know how to do it because they've been practicing. And if they're new to it, somebody else has been practicing, and they can support them. So anything you choose to do in life, or exactly for coaching. So, or I don't know what you were saying. Okay. Anything, I can't multitask anymore. When you have anything you want to learn, anything you want to do, you have to remember, in fact, my coach, she just shared this with me the other day. Misha, think about this. You're planting seeds, not for daisies who will blow over in the wind or get crushed, but you're planting seeds for oak trees. Thank you, Annie Meehan, shouting you out. Anyways, so the idea is that everything you do is for longevity and sustainability. It's not because you're just going to try it, can I say that? Okay, half-assed, and then it's not going to work, right?
You said, "Oh shit, can I say that?" Okay, half-assed.
I was like, yeah.
Did I say oh shit?
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's great.
All right, I'm gonna
Just wanted to point that out to everybody watching. Oh no, now she's gone.
Let's post that one on social
That's
media.
exciting.
It's too late.
Clip and cut that
I
one,
just
please.
lost my visibility.
That's so funny.
We do incrementality. Is that the word? What's the word?
Incrementalization.
Incrementalism, whatever. We do it in our classes. Okay. We do, because I remember the first breakout, you threw us in this room, and I'm in there with this guy I've never spoken to before. And I'm like, do you know what to do? I don't know what to do. Do you know what to
now,
do?
by the way.
Oh, that would be cool. That would be great. And we've been pals, we stayed pals after the class. literally like that moment was so uncomfortable, but it was only like 5 minutes. So it was like the first 5 minutes of like you threw us in the pool and it's like a cold plunge. And I am freaking out. The other person's freaking out, but we get through it together. By the end of the 5 minutes, the nervous system calms. You go back into class, and that's as bad as it gets. As soon as you're done with that breakout, each one after that is better. It's calmer, it's more manageable. And that's the brilliance of our classes, truly.
Yep.
Yeah. And we didn't even pay her to say that.
Well, we do, but
Yeah, well, there's a well.
I speak from experience, so come on. Like,
Mhm.
I think that is the cool thing, because people, we all have on newness, not knowing, being a new group, anything that's new, there is that what's going to happen, what are we going to do? So anything that can help break into some of those, I hate to keep calling them anxiety, but I don't know, is there another better word? Those fears or those not knowing concepts, to just get submerged into them. I mean, I think that's for many people, not all people, right? All people is never the case. But for me, once I submerged myself in getting out there and talking in front of others, then it became, pretty easy. I still have my little dance I do before, but the end result is I still can get in there and have a conversation in front of people.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have a speaker series that I created that I'm doing now. And this is the second week that we did it. And I was so nervous before people arrived, thinking, did I do all this and no one's going to arrive? I wasn't nervous about speaking in front of people. I was nervous about the actual progression of how it's going to work out. People showed up, and I mean, within the first person showing up, I was like, oh, I'm great.
Yeah.
But so I think there's just a natural tendency to have that angst of the unknown. Right. And then once you go through it, even for a half a minute or 5 minutes, you start to feel a little bit more like, oh, I'm surviving. I mean, we all have survived 100% of our traumas to this date. So why don't we take that information? I know, right? Woo! Why don't we take that information, and why does that not help us towards the next time? Because I just think we lose our memory. Like, oh yeah, it was good. It was good, but wasn't it good? No, I had a lot of stress. That's what you remember.
Yeah.
I think we've been talking up until this point. I think we've been in the steps that we've been providing to people have been good for people who understand already maybe the benefit of getting over this fear and anxiety. Like, it's going to be better in the end that I go put myself out there and work through this maybe anxiety or fear I have of being seen, because it will get me the results I want. What I'm curious though is this becomes a little bit harder for people who have negative experiences putting themselves out there before, who have maybe directly been ridiculed or mocked or brought down when they have put themselves out there, especially if they're younger, and now they don't even want to go there. They're just it's a hard mental block for them to get over. Especially when they want to make a livelihood out of a business that might require them to put themselves out there. Sam, you looked like you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, there was something key that you said there. They don't even want to broach that point. That's, I think, would be the first place to begin if you've got someone who's got that negative experience. I share this in 101s, is that when it comes to blocks, sometimes we hold on to things because they serve us in some way. They may not serve us in our ideal way, but they are serving at least the idea that we're not crazy for holding on to this limiting belief. So what we need to get super honest about is we got to get honest about whether they want to hold on to that or they want to let go of that and embrace a perceivably ideal unknown. You can use Cartesian questions for that one. What's the benefit of holding on? What's the benefit of letting go? What's the drawback of holding on? What's the drawback of letting go? If you want to broach it that way. So it's like, you got somebody like that. Do they want to hold on to it? Do they want to be successful in this thing? Like, let's be real here. Don't give us the right answer. Give us the real answer.
Yeah.
And even in coaching, I will sometimes say that very statement. Is that the right answer, or is that your answer?
It's something I've used in coaching. I'm like, I don't care about the right thing. Like, you got everybody in your life you can give all the big, sexy answers to. Like, this one, you got to get real if you want to make progress, that is.
Mm.
And then just the language you used, Anthony, like getting over the fear. Like for me, I don't look at it that way. I look at it as learning to be with the fear.
Yeah, walking
I'm
through it.
not getting over it. It's coming with me. I mean, it's with me every time I show up on screen. It's going to be with me, the more I show up on screen, but it's not as charged. It's not as strong. It's not holding me back. It's there, but it's no longer a block. It's rather just,
Something you work around or work with.
Work through.
Through.
It's knowing who we are. Like,
Mhm.
we know we have this. For me, when I get up in front of people, I know initially, could that be the setup? It could be. But at any rate, I know I'm going to have this feeling that's going on. I have my routines that I do. My routines help me move in that discomfort. And then eventually it becomes comfortable. So did I move through it? Did I move with it? Did I move around it? It doesn't matter. The piece is that I adjusted and adapted so that I could meet the needs of what I needed to do.
Lisa, I'm curious how you prepared for the Inside CLCI video. Did you do a routine before you started that, or did that not, trigger any fear?
I was anxious with it, and some of those things that I have to do is I call it just drop and roll, where I don't put any thought behind it, like the improv kind of thing. I just get in there and do it, because if I put too much thought, that overthinking gene will start overthinking.
Mm-hmm.
As it did actually in the midst of it. I started like, oh, do I need to do this video? Oh, is this good enough? Is this the good enough? Is this the yeah. So I did visit there, but once I got, in the initial thing, I just had to jump into it, if you will.
I just want to sidebar that for a quick second, Lisa, since we're bringing up the Inside CLCI video series.
Yeah.
What you gave was exactly what we were looking for.
Oh,
Your
okay.
real self, your humanity. And I was drawn in watching the video. So as nervous as you might have been, as much as you might have felt like you were overthinking, Lisa, you gave exactly what we needed. So
Okay. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you.
Stay tuned for Inside CLCI videos that will be
I
releasing.
definitely overthought mine. I'm just going to go ahead and yeah.
And I just kind of.
Everybody all did awesome. All right.
I did it well considered, responsibly, on time,
Yes.
and perfectly.
Yes, perfectly. So back to walking through the
topic,
fear.
but I appreciate that little deviation. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that out there for everyone.
All right. So walking through the fear, right? You're a coach or maybe you're a client, right? And so some things that I think are helpful towards embracing your authentic self and sharing your voice with the world is knowing that what you're doing is a gift. So, but before you can acknowledge that what you're doing is a gift, you have to acknowledge the fear that you're feeling. Because if you stuff it down and you ignore it, it's just going to fester. And when you name the fear, you're right. You have to, we've talked about this in the 101 or 102 class. I don't remember, but name it to claim it, name it to tame it. Right. So understanding the fear, where does it come from? And then we talked earlier, right, about incrementality, like starting small, right? And then maybe reframing the fear. We've asked people in our coaching sessions, they talk about, being unhappy. Well, what's the opposite of being unhappy? So what would the opposite of being fearful be? Right. And then shifting your spotlight to that reframing. And then, if you do something, this is like one of my favorite pieces is like, celebrate your wins. Like, okay, wow, I showed up for that. Okay. I didn't stay a whole hour, but we're not going to focus on that. I showed up and I was there for 8 minutes and 32 seconds. Woohoo! Okay. But really, and then surrounding yourself with support, practicing self-compassion, and visualizing success. And then knowing that criticism is so not to tear you down, but to support you in attaining the goals that you want for yourself. So whether it's for a client or for those of you who are coaches, and all of those things could be turned into coaching questions.
Mhm.
I
Sure.
just went on a ramble, but there you go. That's where my head was.
You touched on something. You touched on something about being your authentic self,
Mhm.
and I think that is probably the scariest thing for a lot of people. Not even just in being seen by groups of people, by just one-on-one relationships, or even to themselves. Being authentic is hard for people because they don't even want to see themselves for
Correct.
who they are.
Yep.
I want now here's where the twist is. I want to maybe encourage people being comfortable with being inauthentic sometimes, if that's what you need to get things done. And what I mean by that is, fake it till you make it. If you feel as if you're being inauthentic,
Oh,
you can lean into that for your benefit. We're not saying you always have to be bare, open, authentic, 100% vulnerable.
perfect. You don't have to be perfect.
Yeah, because that's a tough thing to do,
Mhm.
especially all the time. It's
Boring.
a high standard to hold for yourself. And I guess a practical example I would think of this is, you have your personas, you have your public professional persona. Sometimes when you go into work, you are presenting a version of yourself that is different from a version of yourself that you would at home. Or, for an example, I'm more familiar with is like writers use pen names a lot, because they want to have that degree of separation between their art and what they do professionally and themselves when they're home by themselves. And it's not a bad thing to be inauthentic. It's just knowing the difference between when it's appropriate and when it's a crutch that you're using. And there's my rant.
Well, I think the fake it till you make it. There's just some days you don't feel like making it. You don't want to be on. You don't want to be in front of people. You don't want to, and so you have to find that, like you said, that push into that persona, that pen name that allows you to tap into that piece of you that's not really wanting to, and find a way. Again, it just comes down to adapt to what you need to do in that moment.
Mhm.
That fake it till you make it phrase, I have such like a visceral response when I hear
I
that.
don't really
I
like it too much.
really don't like it.
Yeah.
And some people, they like it and they use it. And I'm immediately like, no,
No,
I will fake nothing.
So
Why?
I will
why-
say, oh, sorry, Sam, go ahead.
uh-huh.
No, just there was something Jen just said. It made me think of, what did we start Coaching 101 with? I Am Me by Virginia Satir, the excerpts of that poem. What I will say is, yes, I understand that there is value in, I don't necessarily call it being inauthentic, but rather putting on the mask for the situation, because like the mask is external, who I am is going to be internal.
Yeah.
I have found that the best interactions with strangers, with peers, with colleagues, even with prospective clients, is just letting them know, y'all, I'm going to keep it real. I am nervous about this conversation right now.
Yeah.
Even sales conversations, I'm like, this is the part that always freaks me out. And doing that, you know what happens? People take off their masks too. People let down their guards. In a world where people are in this literal masquerade, if you will, you got the fanciest masks and the shiniest suits and the fullest pockets. You got somebody that shows up and has, frankly, the balls to say, this is who I am. Who are you? And they're like, well, this is me too. And this is me too. It's a literal ripple effect.
Mhm.
Sorry, Misha, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, I have had to use that phrase. I'm going to get vulnerable here. I have had to use that phrase, fake it till you make it, because there was a long period of time where I didn't think I was beautiful. I didn't think I was intelligent. I didn't think that I was good enough for anybody. I was told I was too emotional, too sensitive, too much. And so I literally had a coach who would tell me, I want you to look in the mirror and tell yourself you're beautiful inside and out. And I couldn't do it. So I had to write it on the mirror with makeup that I never wore, anyways. And I would have to say it over and over again, reading it. I still wouldn't look at myself. And I'd have to go out into the world every day, being a teacher and a role model for students of all ages, faking it so that I could make it, so that I could model what it meant to show up in the world and wake up every day and wake up trying to make an impact for positive people, on the positive side. I mean, it was literally, I'm 56 now, and it was at 54 that I started claiming that I'm intelligent. So sometimes we just have to, some of us have to fake it till we make it. And it's really about that incrementality, that baby steps of saying I'm intelligent, finding proof that I'm intelligent, not basing my intelligence on societal definitions of intelligence, but what I feel makes me an intelligent human. So I can understand why some people have a visceral response to it. And I think when we look at it a different way, as far as I'm not actually faking anything, I'm hiding the fact that I don't believe in that for myself right now. And so how am I going to actually get up and put one foot in front of the other if I don't tell myself, you got this, you're going to do it, even when I don't fully believe it? So that's what faking it till I make it. Aw, thanks, Emily. That's what it means to me, right? Is being able to give myself a pep talk, right? Giving myself the ability to believe that as I go through, I will believe it. And it doesn't matter how many people did tell me, I still wasn't able to believe it until I created, and through coaching, redefined intelligence for myself, not for everybody else.
And I think that's a very important piece that a lot of coaches don't, especially when they first start becoming coaches, don't believe that is not their role to tell you you're beautiful, you're amazing. Why can't I tell you that? Because you don't believe it. It has to come from you before you find that belief in yourself and that journey down that path of how amazing and beautiful you are to really believe it when I say it. Mm-hmm. But as a coach, I cannot tell you to be something that you do not believe you're capable of or in that space until you walk the journey, walk the walk, do the pace, put the mask on briefly in order to get through it, to know what it feels like. Yeah. So that when it becomes authentic, maybe you can recognize it better.
Well, and I think that's why, and going back to what Jen said about our classes, like the fact that like with 101, we take people slowly through Go Learn in the process of coaching so that little by little they can feel like, oh, I can do this, right? Because there's so much fear and so much doubt. And then they leave 101 and like, oh crap, I got to build a business. Now what do I do? Oh, if you go back to the one, it's kind of like the fun, it's 101. We used to call it one, but I think it's ironic now that it's called 101 because in college, what English 101, right? You're starting at the basics, the foundations. Now you're going to build your business. Now you're going to find that 101 level of getting up and getting out each day to tell somebody, even if it's just sending an email and not actually showing your face. I'm started a coaching practice now, and I wondered if you tell people about it, right? But it's still something. And so even when we're in our classes, we can't tell everybody, even though we're not coaching, we're actually instructing. We still can't tell people, you got this, you can do it. And for them to believe it. Like I can say, I'll believe it till you believe it, but that's not going to help them become successful. They have to start believing it for themselves.
You know what I realized, Misha, and hearing you describe your version of fake it till you make it, it's my own issue with the word fake. What I heard from you was so beautiful, and I didn't hear anything fake about it. I heard live it so you can give it. Like you had to embody what you wanted to then give back and do for other people.
Yeah.
And so that's what it is. For me, it's the language.
Yeah, it's always
the experience.
Damn semantics.
But as a coach, I would need to learn that about Jen and not use
Right.
those terms, right?
Right. Like if you use those terms in the coaching space with me, I would immediately be like, nope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why we ask for consent. Now we're going on to a totally different topic right now, so we maybe won't go that way. But right, I have a thought that an expression that just came to my mind. I wonder if I could share it with you.
Right.
And I say, "Fake it till you make it," and you look at me and kind of go, "Ew." But I can ask, what does that mean to you?
Right.
What does it not mean to you?
Yeah.
Right.
And then we have some data, because that, whatever it means to me, I may then formulate something like whatever I just said there. What did I say? Live it so you can give it. I've never said that before. Like that just came through.
I love it.
Yeah, that just came through. So from just thinking about fake it till you make it. So that's the beauty of coaching too, is that even if it's a miss, you're still moving the conversation forward.
Yep.
Anthony, how much have we deviated from this?
I'm thinking there is a thread, and it goes back to my question of like, well, what happens if the fear is being authentic in general and in being seen? What we talked about is the ways in which we see ourselves and how that is at odds with how we present ourselves to other people, and how those things are different. When Misha was talking about that piece of, showing up and displaying something that feels different on the inside so that you can make it through the day and contribute something to what you believe in, and having to come to that conclusion yourself. It's all about that fear of seeing yourself, and then other people might see, through the cracks, perhaps. Maybe not in Misha's case, but in a lot of other people's cases that I've talked to, it's that fear of being seen. Like, it's, what is it called? We talk about this all the time for coaches, and we talk about it a lot in our lives. Imposter syndrome. There it is. A lot of it is the fear of being seen as an imposter. Like, I see through your mask. I see you are faking or pretending or being something you're not.
Mhm.
And that is a hard fear to get people out of. Do you guys have maybe suggestions about that imposter syndrome? Even though either through Jen's, how she worded it, or through Misha's, I know it's for my benefit that I fake it till I make it. How do I get past other people who might see me as an imposter or being found out?
Yes. So from a coach's perspective, I think this is one of the easiest places to start as a facilitator here. If you think of life coach for a moment, what are some big names that immediately pop up in y'all's minds?
Tony Robbins.
We don't need to say it out loud.
Rich Lippman.
I mean, you don't have to say it out loud, but for our viewers, whether you're watching live or watching the replay, you probably thought it, and a bunch of other people probably thought the same name. The first place I begin is saying you're probably not going to be like them.
Yeah.
But you're certainly going to be the first coming of you. So just disarming this idea that you've got to be like the big name coaches out there. That's number one.
Well, before you go on, the big name coaches are not coaching for the most part. Anyway,
Not by the ICF definition of coaching.
Which is the only definition I recognize.
Correct. And here's the thing, not everyone comes into our class with that understanding of coaching anyway. Like, I ask people who's got some exposure to coaching, and at least half the class raises their hand, and we find out which definitions are ICF and are not ICF aligned. And by the way, even the ICF itself, in one of their trainings on their learning portal, say that there are both certified and uncertified ICF, non-ICF that bring value to the coaching profession. So this is not a cause for supremacy. That's not what I'm saying here. But going back to what I'm saying, you don't have to be the second coming of somebody else. You just got to be the first coming of you. And upon initial delivery, sometimes it's not always received, but as they get into their coaching styles, they start to see, oh, I am my own person. I am my own coach. The same way that whatever makes a Big Mac and whatever makes a Whataburger have their own distinct features, you got your own distinct feature from the big name coach that you're trying to compare yourself to. So letting them know you're not going to be the second coming of them. For a client, when it comes to that, obviously I'm not coming into with the directive, consultative energy of you just got to be yourself, but asking, what makes you you? It's like when it comes to imposter, when you think of the word imposter, who are you impersonating by default or by design? The real answer is nobody. You're influenced by different things, sure. But when it really comes down to it, if you just get a client to slow down and identify, who are you? What makes you you? What is your inherent, if you want to go with mission, vision, and values, you can go down that route if you want to. But all in all, getting in touch with the essence of their identity, not this image play of whoever they want to be like. So starting there, for coaches, you ain't going to be the second coming of, not going to say the name. For clients,
Jesus Christ.
He who shall not be named.
He, she, they who shall not be named. Who are you?
Voldemort. It was Voldemort.
Voldemort.
Just name them.
Gerard Butler. I don't know.
All right, you guys talked about data, so I did a little research because I can multitask sometimes. So this is from Psychology Today, and where is my other resource? National Institute of Mental Health and Very Well Mind, all these different things. So 7% of U.S. adults experience social anxiety disorder characterized by a fear of being judged, embarrassed, or scrutinized. It mainly manifests during public speaking, social interactions, or situations require increased visibility. Public speaking anxiety. About 75% of people experience some level of public speaking anxiety, also known as glossophobia. In the workplace, fear of visibility may prevent individuals from sharing ideas, pursuing promotions, or accepting leadership opportunities because they have anxiety around being in the spotlight. Imposter syndrome and self-doubt. Research suggests that about 70% of people encounter imposter syndrome at some point, characterized by persistent self-doubt and fears of being exposed as a fraud, even amid clear evidence of competence. And this phenomenon can limit people's willingness to be visible, share achievements, or take risks due to the fear of judgment or perceived unworthiness. 70%. Wow. So
if
you're not unique.
And if you're a coach, that's a pretty good niche to get into, is coaching with people with imposter syndrome. They're out there.
That's true. Maybe I'll change my career, although I'm pretty good right now. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think part of it is because oftentimes we're told, hey, be yourself. No, not like that. Be yourself the way we want.
Not like that.
In a better way, be yourself.
That means 3 out of the 5 of us have imposter syndrome right now.
Who is it?
It's always me.
All right, Jen, Lisa, we got one more.
Must be Sam. He just is.
Yeah,
He hid.
When you said 3 people, I thought you were going to say me, myself, and I, and then the other people seem to claim it.
And then there's 9 people.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, no, I definitely have had imposter syndrome. In fact, when I first started my coaching practice, I was doing academic life coaching, and it felt really good, and it felt just natural. And so I started getting like this imposter syndrome that I shouldn't be charging what I'm charging because it was easy. And the other group of people in my coaching cohort were like, Misha, perhaps it's easy because you've worked your whole life as an educator. And like, you're at a point where you should get paid for what you're doing because it's natural for you. So that imposter syndrome really took over, feeling like I shouldn't charge this amount of money because I'm not working very hard. But it's not about working very hard. It's about working smarter and being able to find ways to enjoy what you do, right? Yes, Sam. It's that brain intelligence thing I got all of a sudden.
There you go. I think that is a good way to wrap it up. So we will end the live now. Thank you all for coming and showing yourselves, even though we are afraid to be seen and may have imposter syndrome. I'm thinking us, the people on the live, not the guests.
We're ghosts. Is that what that means? We're ghosts? And when we get into the
Wait. We didn't ask anybody watching like how they feel about being seen.
Too
Is
late.
anybody
Well-
still watching?
Let's see. Emily and Jerome and Tristan
And y'all see,
Let's just listen,
great
check.
discussion. Thanks for
They
sharing.
are
Are
not-
you guys afraid of being seen? Like,
Apparently
can you turn on
not.
your cameras? No, I'm just kidding. They can't turn on their cameras because they're not.
But the people who have been hiding in the
They can type
background
them.
of YouTube and Facebook, we also accept it and are okay if you don't want to be seen and want to share your comments. But maybe try again for next week. Share, like, subscribe, or take our classes as well.
That'll-
Or if you've already taken our classes, join me for mentoring. We've got a new group starting in December.
And Misha
Yes.
barely scrutinizes you or judges you. She's judging your coaching sessions, not you.
No. I give you authentic feedback.
There you go.
You go
We
and
are-
see.
We are marketing ourselves perfectly here for the mentor coaching, which
Emily,
will
you've got
open
this. Emily, you got this. Get a coach. They'll help you get
Mhm.
through this.
oh,
I'm
I gotta
sending you
remember
up.
to
You
show
got this.
these.
Emily, we can send you a staff student coaching, right?
Okay, Tristan, go put the pillow, but
That's
don't put
true.
it over you so you can't breathe.
Mhm.
Come on. Yeah. Good night.
All right, we will see you guys next week and with another scary one-on-one topic.
Oh,
What is
Bye.
it? Do we know?
I don't know.
Huh?
We'll
Okay.
figure out.
it's
It's
just
the
another scary
The
101 in
fear of the
October.